Hey everyone, how's it going? Man, what was that national title run by Indiana? 2 years ago, they were literally the team with the most losses in the history of college football. Then Curt Cignetti shows up, drops a Google Me, and makes history. They beat Miami 27-21 in the national championship. And now it's official. Indiana is the national champion. Yes, you heard that right. Indiana national champion. And look, one thing you can't deny is that Cignetti is building something big. The guy arrived in 2023, changed the culture, brought in the right players, kept the coaching staff together, and now he's being called the next dynasty builder. So let's watch this clip together because there's a lot of good stuff to break down. Let's go.
It's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
That was Curt Cignetti back in 2023, but now when people Google Cignetti's name, they will also see the words national champion after the Indiana
27-21 over Miami in the final. Man, it starts right there. A national championship game at Hard Rock Stadium, and Indiana lifts the trophy. Who would have thought? Drop a comment. Do you think this was the biggest plot twist in college football history?
Hoosiers beat the Miami Hurricanes 27-21 last night in the national championship game. Here's Cignetti being asked about how he will allow himself to enjoy the moment.
Good question. Because I'll be dealing with underclassmen going to the NFL tomorrow, and who knows what else. And if I was smart, I'd probably retire. Then I'd really be a story. But we need the money. What would I do? What would I do? No. So I don't know if I'll have a beer in the tilt chair. I had one after the game. That's enough for me.
Prior to Cignetti's arrival in Bloomington in 2023, Indiana had 713 losses since the program began in 1887, the most in the FBS over that span. Since, the Hoosiers have won a national championship, produced 2 10-win seasons, which is
from the most losing team in history to 2 straight seasons with 10 wins. It's unbelievable. Indiana had never had a 1-0 win season, and now they've done it twice, and there are still people doubting Cignetti. He already deserves a statue. Tell me I'm wrong.
Something the program had never accomplished before Cignetti's arrival. Great now to be joined by EJ Manuel, who's here with us, SA in Miami, CC to my left. The show, Curt Cignetti, is he building the next college football dynasty at Indiana?
What's up, guys? Well, look, it looks like he's certainly building the foundation. And you look at this team the past 2 years, not just with what we saw last night with the national championship victory in Miami at Miami's home stadium. I also look at 2024, right, where they were able to make it to a college football playoff in Coach Cignetti's first year. Keep this in mind, with a bunch of players from JMU who maybe got overlooked in the recruiting process. No 5 stars, all that kind of stuff does matter. And then he was able to keep his offensive and defensive coordinators after a very good year in 2024, bring back a lot of the main talent from that team that also made it to a playoff, and then add Fernando Mendoza, which was perfect because now Fernando Mendoza brought in that same mindset of buy-in. He goes out and wins the national championship, but also wins a Heisman Trophy. And so when we think about some of the greats of college football, my old coach, Bobby Bowden, Nick Saban, a bunch of them out there, man. Like, you got to look at them when they first started at some of these programs. And I haven't seen one that started so fast with wins and opportunities to win championships. So I certainly do believe the dynasty run at Indiana is also starting right now.
Stephen A., agree or disagree? Are we seeing a new dynasty forming in Indiana?
I think it's possible. And I'm not going to lie to you. I think I allude to the click. I don't know how y'all feel about it, but I think it's pretty badass for a guy to come from James Madison and in his press conference a couple of years ago says, I win. Google me. And this is him being introduced at a press conference for Indiana, who was the losingest program in NCAA history of football. I mean, nobody lost more than them, and they never won a national championship. And to show up there, not Michigan, not Ohio State, not Alabama, not Georgia, not something like that, to show up there and sit up there and the day you're introduced said, I win. Google me. And then in 2 years, you go 27-2 an undefeated season. And
look at that resume. The guy showed up saying, Google me, and now he doesn't even need to say it anymore. Just show the tape and that's it. Go ahead and hit that like button if this historic turnaround shocked you too.
win a national championship, I mean, damn. You don't really have, I mean, all you got to do is play that tape and then look at his resume and go like this. Well, he's right. And if you want to win, you're going to come to Indiana. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the case when it comes to, you're going to have people that's going to go to Michigan, Ohio State, and all of that stuff because they're going to think about the rivalries. They're going to think about the national television exposure. They're going to think about all of these things. But Cignetti put everybody on notice 2 years ago and then backed it up. And then all of a sudden, you start remembering, he did coach under Nick Saban, who won 7. I mean, the man is qualified. And we're talking about a guy that Nick Saban raves about. Why is that important? Not just because Nick Saban won 7 titles, but because Nick Saban fired the dude the week of the national championship game in Lane Kiffin because he didn't think he was focused enough. I mean, think about that. So not only is it working for Nick Saban, but it's surviving working for Nick Saban, staying on board until you get a better opportunity, and then have the man raving about you along the way. Those are all elements of success when you're talking about building a college football program. And to be sitting here fresh off an undefeated season, having won a national championship and annihilating everyone in the process until the national championship game, and then getting the kind of heroics that you got from Mendoza and others, I mean, Sharp, and then let's not forget about him and that key interception, even though Beck underthrew it. Bottom line is you can't say enough about Cignetti right now in Indiana. You just can't. Yeah, it's possible a dynasty could be in the making. It is with him.
Yeah, it's the infancy stages of a dynasty for Curt Cignetti, and it's reminiscent of the early stages of the dynasty in New England with Bill Belichick, because Belichick and Curt Cignetti both understand that the best players don't always make the best teams, but the best teams always win. Now, I mean, listen, from the Big Ten championship on, the teams that Indiana faced had more 5-star recruits on their rosters than Indiana. How do I know that? Because Indiana has a grand total of 0 5-star recruits. But it doesn't matter because those players have the poise and the confidence to execute in the biggest moments, and they avoid the self-inflicting wounds. They don't make mistakes. Last night was a microcosm of Curt Cignetti's program in the last 2 years at Indiana. They doubled up on Miami when it comes to rush attempts. They had fewer penalties than Miami. They had fewer turnovers than Miami. And they won time of possession, holding the ball over 36 minutes. That's going to allow you to win a lot of football games. But the thing that's probably the most impressive about how Curt Cignetti in Indiana has done this is that they can give it to you any way you want it. They can play any kind of game that they need to. Look at what happened this past season. They hung 60 on Illinois, which was a top 10.
Indiana has 0 5-star recruits. Man, 0 5 stars, and they still beat Michigan, Ohio State, and now Miami. That's organization, focus, and discipline. This proves it's not just about raw talent. It's system. It's culture. After all this, would you play for Indiana?
Team at the time that they played them. Guess what? They only scored 13 in the Big Ten championship against Ohio State. Both of those were wins. They came from behind, game-winning drive by Fernando Mendoza and Happy Valley at Penn State, a desperate team that was reeling after what was going on with James Franklin. They can play any style of game, and they can win because they have the poise, they have the confidence, they have the discipline to execute. And that's why I think what we're seeing at Indiana from Curt Cignetti and his bunch is sustainable.
I just don't think.
EJ.
Go ahead.
EJ, he's got, he did that. He had Mendoza. Obviously, now he's going to get Josh Hoover from TCU. What kind of effect do you expect that to have on the program last year? The Cats has thrown about 56 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, but threw about 24 interceptions. Threw for over nearly 4,000 yards, in 2024. Nearly 3,500 yards this past season. Replacing Mendoza, how are you feeling about what he's going to bring to that program next season? Because all eyes are obviously going to be on Indiana next season.
Well, look at the last 2 years, right? We already talked about Fernando in depth, and he goes out and wins a Heisman Trophy. He's going to be the first pick in the draft. And then even last year, Curtis Rourke. You know, Curtis Rourke came from Ohio, fellas. Like, he was good at Ohio, but he came to Indiana and looked like a different quarterback. So it's kind of proof in the pudding at this point that now this is a destination for QBs and skilled players. And they've already had one of the top transfer portal classes that will be around Josh Hoover. I did read this morning that Fernando Mendoza's brother is going to get into the portal. So obviously he'll try to find another home. But I do think, look, Josh Hoover could come in and, you know, as long as he buys in and listens to what Coach Cignetti's coaching him to do, because keep this in mind, Coach Cignetti, his background is quarterback. His background is quarterback coach and obviously calling plays. And then keep in mind, too, the adjustments that they made throughout that ball game on offense. You look at the way that Miami was trying to attack Indiana, whether they were having single high and then press coverage, when they would, you know, basically get the route to turn into a go route or a fade, and he's hitting Charlie Becker deep down the field. And then when they're playing soft and it's a run, instead of handing it off, they're just going to give a free access throw out to a hitch or a slant and allow Omar Cooper Jr., Elijah Surratt to break a tackle and get a 10, 15-yard gain off a 5-yard throw. So this is a quarterback-friendly offense that beyond how talented the actual QB is, within this system, there's a ton of success that can be had. And the last thing I'll say, too, they run the ball. You think about the offensive line. This is one of the best offensive lines, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. And a lot of those young men are coming back. I do believe the running backs might be moving on, but nonetheless, man, this is a fully loaded team, and I don't see this train.
This video made it clear that what Curt Cignetti is doing at Indiana is way more than luck. He took a program nobody believed in, gave it an identity, and delivered results that even the most optimistic fans never dreamed of. With guys like Fernando Mendoza winning the Heisman and now Josh Hoover coming in, this offense looks ready to keep flying. And you can't forget the support from the coaching staff and the consistency this team shows, even without 5-star recruits. That's rare. Even Stephen A. Smith was impressed. And when that guy gives credit, you know it's serious. My take? The dynasty has already started. It may not look like Alabama or Georgia yet, but if they keep this pace, it's only a matter of time. If you enjoyed this reaction, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment. Do you believe in this Indiana dynasty, or are you still skeptical? We're in this together.